The clock has ticked 7, and we are gathered here this evening for the funeral of poor government policy. So thank you very much for attending. We appreciate your time and interest in mining and renewables, and particularly the fast-track renewable build on Australian farmland. My name is Ross Jones. I'm the President of the Wimmera Mallee Environmental and Agricultural Protection Association, which was incorporated in the spring of 2024. We have roughly 260 members, 2,300 Facebook followers. One is on the extreme left and the exit straight out the back in case of an emergency, which I certainly sincerely hope there is not. If there is a different type of emergency and anyone needs to go to the toilet, you're most free to get up and wander around, and the toilets are out through the back on the left-hand side. We will hear from our speakers, and following each presentation I will allow 2 questions from the floor, and the microphones are at the back, which will be delivered to you on request. At the conclusion of the 5 speakers, there will be a panel session where anyone can ask any question they wish about any topic of any of the panellists. I will be trying to stick to time, so the plan is to finish by 9 p.m, and then there's a cup of tea, coffee and supper out in the foyer. I think that's all I need to point out. I'll introduce Dr. John Russell, soil scientist, agricultural engineer, and passionate about soil health and healthy foods. Of particular interest to John is microbes and soil biology. So I'll pass the podium over to John. Thank you, John.
Good evening. It's a great pleasure to be here in Horsham and such a wonderful venue. It gives me a lot of pleasure to share with you this evening a critique of Victoria. Now, before I get on to tell you a little bit about myself and how I actually came here, because it's quite interesting, I just wish to indicate to the essence of basically my work so far. Most recent letter which I wrote was on the 9th of this month to the Honourable Minister, Lee D'Ambrosio, headed a critique, etc. I wish to draw your attention to, she had a copy of the full critique, which has now been published, and I indicated to her in a very brief letter, my critique clearly shows the trial and its findings are problematic, providing no substantive evidence, bits and pieces, nothing substantive evidence, on which to grant any mineral sands mining licence until such time the requirements of the MRSD Act 1990, we'll call it the Mining Act for the night, right? And the relevant BES objectives, environment effect statements, are met. This has not been demonstrated so far from what I've seen in the critique. I go on a couple more things. I've communicated my concerns to Matt Vincent. He's the CEO of Resources Victoria, who's putting the finishing touches right on basically if they do, and I don't think they will, tick off the granting of the licence. That went to Matt Vincent. Another sentence, I can find no credible example, and this is interesting. One of the first things I did was to actually do what anyone would do, would be to do a big search. And basically, I can find nowhere in the world where a rehabilitation strategy has restored cropping lands to their pre-mining productivity and gross margins. That is amazing. A few people have tried and they haven't got there. We're talking about cropping now. Forests have been regenerated, pasture lands have been regenerated, and a lot of attention's been focused to it, but not with cropping land. You can lose your cropping land, as you'll see later. Finally, I said, to proceed with granting of mining licences, I've got here, to proceed with granting mining licences, that's in the plural, without credible evidence could be regarded as reprehensible, given the enormity of the consequences to the Wimmera Mallee region of such a decision. Okay, well that's where I stand. That's the basis of the work that I've done, and what I tend to do, hopefully, is to share some of the information. It took about 3 months of focused work to actually wade through all the EES's, the inquiry and advisory panel's work, the letters, the toing and froing, and it was just like a big rabbit hole and a big jigsaw puzzle. But however, that's what I've come to, and basically I've been prepared to set it out in black and white. This has gone, as I say, to Resources Victoria for them to analyse and hopefully glean some real information from it. Okay, now, a bit about myself. I'm a shadow reporter. That's one which is rather good. I worked with the State Rivers for 4 years as a young engineer, and I really like agriculture, working with the farmers, drainage and irrigation. I did a agricultural engineering at Melbourne University, again, which was fabulous, and then I went overseas, travelled the world like lots of young people did, but always my perspective was agriculture. What do the farms look like, how are people living, how do they get by, all that type of thing. When I returned to Australia, I worked with Melbourne Water, and basically, particularly with water and wastewater. In wastewater, I became infatuated with biological activities and the power of bacteria. You've got a minnow guts, they affect our heads. We all seem to know all about that now. It's so, so important. But however, I got involved with that then. Joined my tribe in 2000, had country students doing their final reports with me. I would always go out on the land, we do sampling and all those types of things. And I developed a suite of research sites. Then what happened was Kelvin Muller, sitting in the front, came across, saw the work that we were doing there, and he said, why don't you come up to the Wimmera Mallee? You know, the farms are bigger up there and the people are nice, right? So I came up, and I've been on and off, mostly on, for about 5 years, and I've got numbers of sites. My particular interest is healthy soils, healthy food, and then basically healthy us. And my interests are basically the aeration of the soil, not deep ripping, which is becoming far more common now in particular situations, but gentle aeration of the soil, the application of an introduction of additional bacteria, if need be, and my most recent research program that I'm working on had some success, is really developing a biological antifreeze to minimise the effect of frosting. So far we've had some success. Okay, now that's me. I've been working on Paul Oxbrough's property because he's been exceedingly helpful. And I've got 5 sites on his property where we do certain things. And it was last September, because Paul was rather alone. He had windmills coming at him. He was wrapped up in transmission lines. They're going to mine his property. It's the Jackson deposit. Pretty depressing type of stuff, right, when you're on a generation farm and you've done your best to have a really good farm and have it productive and work well for you. So Paul asked me, he said, look, John, can we get you involved in this? And I like being involved, but I said, not the windmills and not the transmission lines, but I know a bit about soils, as he knows. So he said, look, can we pay you? I said, don't want to be paid. I'm out of a university situation and having the freedom to talk and say what you see and what you think. It may not be correct, but be able to do that is worth it to me. So I'm retired, I'm able to do that. So that's, I thought I'd make that pretty clear here. All right. Yeah, I didn't know it'd take so long, right, to do this work. So what Paul did, he took me on the rounds. Being well connected, we went to Banyina, met the farmers there. Saw the site. The site had been dug out and left for 12 years, just left as a hollow. And then basically it was put back together in a hurry. I did some tests infiltration tests, took samples, they were all taken away and analysed. We saw the surface was like this, it was cracked. And then when you dug down, you get down about this far through a surface that looked like a Christmas pudding, and underneath that was just sort of white underburden. Pretty awful. Check the yield maps. Yield maps last year, canola, a third of a tonne less. So just giving you a little bit of a summary. So that sort of interests me quite a lot. Then Paul took me around with other farmers, the rounds of Douglas, Balmoral, and we ended up at Coolwood. And I was absolutely, I don't know if you've been up, we probably haven't been up there, it's a bit of a privilege to be able to get that far up and then be able to actually see some of these things. As far as your eye could see, you could see what had been devastated. There were sinkholes, the country was like this, where it had been 45 metres deep, it had sunk 1.5 metres. And for 12 years the crops had not been germinating properly. And obviously there's no harvest. And all that is basically heading to court to resolve that situation. But more about that later on. So then I became a bit more interested in, I came across, or I was given or was shown, watch Minefield. Many of you would have looked at Minefield, and that absolutely shocked me about basically what had transpired there in the mining industry. How could an industry really behave like that, right? So obviously I became a lot more interested. Then I turned up, well not I didn't turn up, I was invited to go down to the demonstration site at Dooen. That's Avonbank. And like you go out, take some samples, got a bit confused, it was a bit difficult now, it's all level out, and basically took some samples, infiltration trials, saw the area was a bit wavy, this type of thing, and then we took back and analysed those, looked at the microbes, all those types of things. Then there really wasn't, I needed information about yield. Couldn't find information about yield, but eventually, through asking, information would come in. So I thought, look, this is just not good enough. I'll really have to focus on this and do a critique of the whole exercise, because it was billed as a demonstration trial. Okay. So, that's where that's at. So I think I might be able to start now with the overheads, and I'm going to, I've changed around my presentation, I'm going to give you the key points. Okay, we did try this out. Lloyd, Lachlan, can you see those? Key points. Go behind, God, nice and clear. That's fantastic. Okay, well look, you'll see when I go through the body of what I'm going to present to you, that the site was problematical. There were satellite images which were actually reviewed, and you could show that basically there was severe waterlogging on the site, which you'll see. There were 3 soil types where the actual measurements were to be done. This is not a good start. What happened was that you'll see this in a moment too. What happened was that Wimmera, I think, had this site, they wanted a demonstration trial, and particularly what they wanted to do is to assess the heavy concentrated metals and as to whether they can actually extract them. And then obviously put a price on that, and then put a price on the cost of doing it and see whether it's a worthwhile activity. So, that was the site which they set up. But the site was not set up for the other things which were necessary to prove, this is my view, a rehabilitation strategy, which is failed. And also to prove, basically, if you rehabilitate the soil, what yields can you get from it? So, Christian Bannon many of you would know Christian, a very competent soil scientist, was given this particular task. And he was asked to do those two things. He was asked to do a pre-agricultural assessment, benchmark. Wimmera said, here are the holes, 19 of them, go and benchmark them down to a metre or whatever, and then he sampled the tops meticulously, and there must have been significant amounts of money in doing all this, and they had all these logged, magnificently logged. And then, once you've gone through the process of rehabilitation strategy, which I'll indicate in a moment, but briefly it's this: you take it out layer by layer, by layer by layer by layer, then you take it and you store it layer by layer by layer by layer by layer, right? And then, if it's not too wet or sticky or not too dry, then you bring it back. Layer by layer by layer by layer by layer, right? And the accuracy to which you have to get it to 12 millimetres. These are big machines. These are scrapers which are doing this work. Anyway, they did a pretty good task on the basis of the evidence, and I don't question at all, right, the evidence that went into this. So that was the rehabilitation strategy. So I'll just mention about that before I get on to basically the results, the yield results. When you compared the pre-agricultural assessment of all the plots, of all the pits, and then the post, you went back, they were a different set, but they weren't far off. In every case, the soil parameters had degraded, they were less. And in some circumstances, things were severe in that the carbon content had been reduced, I think it was 14% in that relatively short time. We could see in the future a lot longer. We saw boron moving up into the top profile. We saw salt moving up into the top profile. And very importantly, the structure of the soil had gone. So the rehabilitation strategy, although done meticulously, and might I say, Goshen and DMS, Donald Mineral Sands, are piggybacking upon this particular methodology. In that, if this methodology can't produce the goods, how are they going to produce the goods? Because they've done no tests. And this is the first test that basically someone has had a real trial. And reminding you, I searched the world, and as yet I've found nothing where they've attempted this and it's been successful. Okay. Now the next thing is incomprehensible crop yield results. I looked at these and looked at these, and was just playing around with basically projections, models, projection of yields, samples, and these types of things. What you guys want to know is what comes off an adjusted header, and who is doing the work. So, and this is part of the unsatisfactory experimental methods. This work was not done at arm's length. This work was done all in-house. I'm not saying nothing was wrong with that, but basically when you're doing something as important as this, you really get Birchett Cropping Group, CSIRO to come in and set the experiment up properly and then do it. Put queries about that. Okay. The next thing was incomprehensible crop yield results. I'll be showing you a bit more about this later. As I say, nonsensical. And I won't say that word. Okay. So then how does all this sort of pan out? Right? Because a massive amount of work has gone into this. So what you have is Minister Kenny, and she was the planning minister, I think, and they had to to give a kick on the EES. And then it sort of cascades down a little. But she said that she's informed upon the inquiry and advisory committee who actually sat as a panel and got experts in to advise them as to what to do. Now the panel, they were explicit in the way in which they said they were very dependent upon these three experts. I'll indicate to you in a moment what the three experts said in the conclusions that they came to. So, Senior Minister is dependent upon the committee, advisory committee's panel work, and then that depends upon what the experts say. So the last key point here for you to take home, and I'm putting a lot more in this than what I intended to do, is there's necessary, in my view, a very strong case for the Minister to reconvene the inquiry and advisory committee to reassess the substance of the evidence. We're not dealing with evidence. We're dealing with belief, we're dealing with opinion on such an important issue as this. Okay, now we might go a little bit further. I can go a bit quicker now, I think. Okay, I can't see that from here, so I'll have to turn around. Alright, so that's what we're going to go through. Effectively, we've done that. Right, I'll be quick with some of these. You may not know the site out there. This part here is basically the demonstration trial area. It's in a triangular paddock. And I just included this one because this was it, you see, the length of the yield in 2024, most recent. Surprise, surprise, that the yield within this block was only a third of in the whole block. But in actual fact, that's not good science at all. I'm just using the methodology that they use to show you that. In the hurry up, what's this? How come you keep getting the ships coming back? Bang! Thanks, Lynn. Okay, I'll move quickly now. Presumably, the demonstration trial is going to improve the profitability, demonstrate the success rehabilitation strategy, and crop yield. Okay, didn't do any of that. Hang on. What's going on with this? I'm pushing the right button. All right. This is very important, this and the next. Is that basically, for the demonstration trial, there are two objectives. The first objective, as you can see there, with the Mining Act, the desirability or otherwise of returning agricultural land to the state that is as close as reasonably possible to its state before the mining licence is granted. Now I'll try it again, we'll probably get another double. Now here we go. And the second objective, and this came out of Wimmera's EES, this is what they're saying they're going to do. Agricultural activity and soil profile capability of the rehabilitated landform will be commensurate with surrounding unmined areas. Changes in the soil chemical and physical properties will be minor, but soil capability and productivity will not be affected. Well, we haven't seen that with the tests that have been done. So we'll have a look at some of the productivity aspects. See how we have this done. No? Where am I supposed to be pointing this for? Here we go. All right. So what we see here is the... I'm using the satellite images. Soils are variably and potentially problematic. Now this was the consultant Chris Manning. This is the first thing he did. You can see here these particular areas here where it's been waterlogged. This has been waterlogged during the year. What he's having to do is to run a yield trial over such conditions. And remember, there's 3 types of soil involved. Not a way to set up the experiment. All right. What we're seeing here now, a soil map was done. Okay. And I can't see in the distance. Okay, closer here. What we have here is a soil map, and basically this here is the part where the digging was done, or the deep work in excavation down 15 odd metres. The sampling, and the yellow line is the outside. The sampling is basically where the flags are, and these points here, 1, 2, 3, 4, these were some of the test points for the crops in the 2021 barley year. These are trees. What happened was that basically different soil types, these trees being here means that they could not be sprayed out. I know what a boom spray is like, they can't get near it. And basically when they did the testing and the counts, they found that basically weed burdens were massive in these areas. Okay. One more? Yes. Now briefly, right. What we have here is the costume there. These are the stockpiles, and as I told you before, it all has to go out, come out in sequence, stored in sequence, back in sequence to get the result. There you can see basically overburden being returned. Next one. Topsoil being returned. Next one. This is when they start to grow the crops. And the farmer will grow the crop over the top. And you can see the outline here of basically where the initial work of the stockpile is there. Next one. Next one. Okay. So this is pretty important what I said to you about the yields. What we're having here is basically the estimated crop yield monitored was through each growing season was similar or higher in the rehabilitated site than in the unmined areas of barley. They're talking the estimated crop yield monitored. When they put the machines in, they got the opposite position. Because basically, where they had the samples for the crops, that's where there was the weed burden. So the sampling there was very, very poor. Next, please. So we see here, this is the disturbed area. This here is the undisturbed area. This is outside the perimeter, going down here. And briefly, we've got in some independent people to actually put a harvester in. What did they find? They found that basically there's 8.5% more grain in this particular area than basically in the disturbed area. Totally contrary to what they expected would happen. That wasn't shown in any of the publications, the glossy publications you see. What I showed you before was that they said that the estimates were better. The estimates, where the estimates were in error. Okay, next one. As you can see here, complicating the problem. Look, this is really low yield in here. That's the costume there. And basically, this is 2022. We all know what level, how many levels survived during that year. So basically, how can you actually draw any conclusion from this? Next one. Oh, we've had that. Next one. Next one. Okay. So, it was stated by WIM's solicitors that, as you can read, and I can't read it, right? As all three experts agreed that the land can be rehabilitated. Well, they didn't agree, as you'll see in a minute. Then I can finish, Ross. The proponent said the committee does not need to look at the rehabilitation plan. Next one. This statement is misleading, as the three experts have not said the land can be rehabilitated to agricultural productivity and soil profile capability commensurate with the surrounding unmined areas as per the Mining Act and the EES. Next one. Harry Savage, who was one of the experts, he had nothing to do with the year. Next one. Chris Bannon, basically he said, is viewed as a success or outcome. Successful for water agriculture. That's all he could say. He was served a poisoned chalice to try and do something. He hasn't. Next one. And then Matthew Sparks, a really good agronomist, you know the guy in the area, he says a very interesting thing. He was really aware of the main issue was to meet the Mining Act and also bring the soils back to their original health. With the need of ongoing treatment, and it may take years, possibly decades. He's not agreeing, right, that basically it can be restored. He's saying it's very difficult. If ever you can do this, and the conditions, the things that you need to do to the soil to bring it back, are mega, which is probably unlikely that contractors will actually do this when they're doing 500 hectares a year. Next one. Well, this is interesting. He concluded, concerns lay out in the real, but with the best management practices, in-depth discussion, and liaising with growers, and a rigorous looking at all the risks and solutions, I believe a workable plan for all parties can be achieved. They need to be included in the ROM, Rehabilitation Operation Management Plan. This is not agreed with WIM's claim, and is not evidence. It's but a belief. Next one. Just about finished, guys. Here we go. You'll see it in the report, but basically, this is a looker. After 12 years, I mentioned before, the land there remains ruined and it remains dangerous to operate. Next one. So this is what I said to you before about Sonia Penny. She relied upon the various parties to provide her with an opportunity to make a decision. Next one. The IAC report, they said it can generally agree the impacts on the soil can be managed and the rehabilitation plan can be achieved in consultation with landowners. Is this above substantive evidence on which to make such a momentous decision? Next one. So, Harry Savage, here's one of the three experts. They're advising the Minister indirectly. So the Minister has to make a decision, and it's on the basis of these three guys. Well, as I understand it, Harry wasn't involved with the yield claims. Christian Bannon said, is viewed as a successful outcome, because the thumbs are down, it didn't work out, right? And basically Matthew Sparks says, I believe a workable plan for all parties can be achieved, and it may take years and possibly decades. Now, is the above substantial evidence on which to make such a momentous decision for the region? Next one, I think it's the end. You be pleased, Ross. Next one, please. There we are. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Are there any quick questions? The questions are going to be, yes, Julie, microphone, Julie, please. in the middle. And anyone else would like to ask a question, there's another microphone, one over there. Two ladies, so we've got 100%.
Thank you, that was very informative. My quick question is, you said that the pit was 15 metres deep, and then you said when you went to Oregon it was 45 metres. What is the proposed depth, and what sort of bearing did only going down 15 metres have on the trial?
I think you go to where the load is, right? And where I understand it was 45 metres in place, because the pump was like this up at the Dooen. So they go down, and that's why they had to put so much material back, and that's why there was so much settlement. Like 1.5 metres of settlement. And you had these holes everywhere. You couldn't use machinery, you had to be very careful. There was that. But obviously 15 metres, that's where the load is. That's where we want to go.
Thank you. Next question, please. Yes, just back behind you.
Actually, I don't want to ask a question. I just want to make a statement, because you're talking about Canagol. Living down that way and being involved with the Luca mineral mining company down there with what they did, when you look up the word rehabilitation, meaning in the dictionary, it says the action of restoring something that has been damaged to its former condition. In 2016, there are 152 mines in Victoria, and not one has been rehabilitated. So that just goes to show that it just doesn't. And down at Canagol, it hasn't. It's changed the topography, which has changed the water course, and it's not what it used to be.
Well, I think this is what you're facing here, and this is why basically you shouldn't go ahead.
Thank you, John. That was a crowd pleaser. We are going to move on because time is going to get away. Professor Bill Malcolm is our second presenter, and I will say my son did agricultural economics in Adelaide University with the second best agricultural economist in Australia. Bill Malcolm, in my opinion, is the best agricultural economist at Melbourne University, and we'll hear from Bill. Thank you. Oh, just before I do, I know Bill Malcolm's brother very well, and I must say the cookie cutter is active in the family. They look very similar.
No one knows. No one knows. I'm talking about my focus on the mining question, and no one knows if this change in land use will make anyone better off. No one in this room knows, no one in the state knows, no one in the country knows, because the work hasn't been done. And the point of my talk tonight, the information night, is to provide information to policymakers. So any policymakers here tonight, I'm talking to you, but I'm also talking to state governments and national governments. The point of governments doing things is to make people better off. And to an economist, better off means no one is worse off, and at least one person is better off. And the no one is worse off means that when we make a policy decision and we change resource use, there's always some affected third parties, some innocent bystanders are affected by what we call negative externality, like something like pollution, right? Something happens, you're not part of the transaction, but you're affected adversely. No one worse off means that those who have been affected in that way have been compensated, and after the change has been made, there's still enough benefit left over for someone to be better off. And that's progress, right? Someone in the nation, we are better off as a whole. That's how economists are odd, that's how they think. And that's why I'm trying to say public policy decisions should be analysed. Now, I know, we all know people who just know, right? They just know the answer. They don't need analysis. We all know, so we've all got a neighbour like that, haven't we? Tell me the truth. I know we do, I know you do. We all know people. They just know. They're often wrong, but they're never in doubt. That's the type of government sort of decisions we're getting hit with now, because one time benefit cost analysis was a standard part of national and state government decision making. Going back to the 1940s, 1950s, 1960s, big government decisions were not made without proper benefit cost analysis, and if we weren't going to make someone better off and no one worse off, the rule was you didn't do it. Now those guidelines are still part of government policy, just at least at state government I don't see it happening. The federal government's got a national infrastructure department that they do genuine benefit cost analysis and rank projects, so it does happen in some parts, but I don't see it happening in big decisions at state government level. One time the Department of Agriculture was all over this, and I was part of it. We would do benefit cost analysis of proposed changes to land use to see that no one is going to be worse off and someone could be better off. That's my point tonight. I won't go on much more. I heard a student say to another student the other day, what was Bill's lecture about? Oh, he said it was just Bill's sermon. Well, I'm in the right place, and I can say you've had it. There's a couple more points. People think economics is about money. It's nothing to do with money. Economics is about benefits and costs and doing things where the benefits outweigh the costs. Talk about counting costs. I'll give you an example. The environmental effects statement done in 2008, which is 15 years ago, and probably it was good work, it looked like good work for this mining proposal. Probably needs redoing, but it looked like good work, except the economics was nonsense. But they weren't economists, right? But it suggested over a trip, if mining went for 25 years, there'd be 2.5 million tonne of carbon dioxide equivalent emitted. It didn't matter much in those days, but it does now. So imagine a private firm invests $370 million, say, hypothetically, and it expects to earn the market rate for a risky thing like mining of, say, 7%. That'd be $26 million profit per year, right? 7% of 370 million. But they haven't counted the 100,000 tonne a year of CO2 emissions. And what's the cost of them to society? What's the cost of those emissions? $100 a tonne, the damage it's done. So there's another 10 million. So we're down from 26 million private profit to 16 million after we've taken out the social cost of that one negative externality. Now, there may be other negative externalities we should also count. What I'm getting to is private profit is not the measure you use to decide whether a government is going to allow something to happen. The measure you use is net social benefit. Is one person better off and no one worse off? So we must count more than what I've seen some ridiculous numbers thrown around regarding this proposal. Arrant nonsense, right? Arrant nonsense. Another cost I want to mention quickly is John's talk. Yeah, if farmland is worth $20,000 a hectare, if after the use, the alternative use, if that land has now got zero use, then the cost we should also be counting in the analysis is the $20,000 that the farmland value had and now doesn't have. Okay? I don't think that cost thrown out anywhere because it hasn't been done properly. If the land is rehabilitated perhaps to say 50%, then the cost we've lost there is $10,000 per hectare. Right? That's just another cost. So John's right on. That's the key question to me, is what are we going to get left with at the end? And by the way, it's got to be not what the land is like now, it's what it would be like after it's been farmed well by people in the audience, by Andrew behind me, who can continually improve their land productivity over the next 40 years. That's what this land has to be restored to, because that's where that's what we're losing. So that's a key question. I keep hammering that one. Again, analysis is needed. Soil analysis, economic analysis, social benefit costs. One more point. Economists take a national view. So, if the economy is fully employed, this new investment is not creating one new job. It is simply shifting workers around Australia. Okay, so there's no new jobs involved and the economy is fully employed. If the economy is operating at full capacity, and if the capital is foreign owned, then what are the benefits for Australia? What does Australia get out of this? We get royalty, 2.75%, a figure which is low to start with and gets even lower once the sums are worked out. And we get income tax from the foreign companies, of course. The point I'm making is, if the economy is fully employed, all those employment numbers are nonsense because we're just shifting people around Australia. Those economic activity figures, those gross domestic product of Victoria, gross state product, regional state product, all that, those numbers are an idiot's measure of anything. They're not a measure of people's welfare. So none of the proper analysis has been done. So to finish up, the thing I'd say to policymakers is, and I do say to them, just keep this in mind, that bad decisions come home to roost. And I've seen that eventually economics beats politics eventually. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Bill. That was a great sermon, nice and short. That was very impressive. 2 questions. Or can we have someone else first? We've got to share the questions around. Anyone got an economics question? Anyone got a political question? Oh, down the front, right in the front here. Oh, I wasn't going to go to religious, but if you want to, we can.
I was just going to ask if you're aware of the situation we've got in Denmark and the situation we've got in Qatar in regard to the gas exports and oil exports, the value that they actually give back to their people compared to what happens in Australia. We give our gas away. Makes no sense. In Qatar makes 76 billion a year on less gas exports than us. In Denmark, they've got $1 million sovereign funds from the assets they have, and their government owns 55% of every one of those companies. Can we explain why Australia doesn't do that?
Excellent question, I reckon, Bill.
Yeah, good question. One question is we do need and have always needed foreign capital to develop Australia. We're richer because we have used other people's money well, right? Well, we won't start making up our own economics. But the concept of sovereign wealth funds and all that is great. You've got massive oil booms. We've had mining booms. Every mining boom we've had, we've dissipated the benefits. So I agree totally with you. It makes perfect sense that we should make much more use. When we have a mining boom, what do? We give it back to the middle class welfare, right? That's how I did with the last mining boom. Mining booms should be capitalised on, and that sovereign wealth fund that, say, Norway has and all that, with their oil and all that, makes perfect economic sense, but it's never been remotely attempted in Australia. It's far too sensible.
Bill, I think it was about the royalties that we gained from the sale of gas. Why is Qatar getting, what was it? 76 billion, and we're getting 2 billion for the sale of our... Okay.
No, I didn't get the detail of your question, but I can't answer it. Our royalties on petroleum is about 10%, on mining it's been 2.5%. Why it's always been so low, I can't answer that, but it's a good question. But it points to me to pretty poor leadership for many, many generations.
Well answered, Bill. Another question? Oh, if there's no other questions, I'm going to be forced, yes.
Ross? You talk about benefit cost analysis. In between 2010 and 2015, listed on the National Register for Pollution, it put the postcode of 3401, which was when our mine was taking place at Canagalt, for PM10 pollution. When some councils in Australia are paying overseas to reduce their carbon emissions in their area, how does Australia, when these mining projects are emitting so many carbon emissions, how does Australia end up being zero carbon emissions when we have to go overseas instead of what we're doing here in Australia, especially with mining, to offset it.
Yeah, I think I understand. Regarding carbon emissions, I've got a ute and a car, and I put out 20 tonne of CO2 a year, so I should be sending a $2,000 bill to the government for the damage on the course with my ute and car. Mining companies should be paying exactly the same $100 a tonne carbon tax to what they're emitting, because that's the social cost that's caused by the emissions, right? I didn't understand what you're saying about overseas and all that.
I read that some of the councils in Melbourne, because of carbon emissions, they're actually paying for projects overseas to show that there's a reduction of carbon emissions in their area.
Yeah.
And in 2010 to 15, this 3401, which is this council area, was on the register for pollution for PM10. So how do we reduce our carbon emissions if these mining companies are...
Yeah, no. Well, councils aren't responsible. Individuals and businesses are responsible, and we are making the top 200 firms, are already accounting for their carbon emissions every year now, in a financial sense. The Mining Act I saw today, they do have to record their emissions, right? But the next step is they have to pay for it, right? So everyone's got to pay for it, and they've got to pay for it. Don't worry about that. As far as councils paying overseas to reduce their emissions, I know a big beef operation in Queensland. They're net zero, and you know how they did it? They bought a wind farm in India. Perfectly sensible, great solution, right? If you're good at farm, pay someone else to get rid of your emissions. That's the market of work, and that's the future. But first of all, we've got to get people paying for the cost they're causing. So that's the first step.
All right, well, thank you very much. I'd like to show your appreciation to Bill. And think of some more questions for the panel at the end, if you wish. Our next speaker is Andrew Weidemann. Andrew Weidemann is a farmer at Repengup and has been representing growers at a national and international level for a long period of time. I'd like you to welcome Andrew to the podium.
Thanks very much, Ross, and also to the organisers as well, our group, with Andrea, Ross, myself and the Dunmunkle Land Protection Group, who I represent at the moment as Chair, and Ross represents the Mallee Environmental and Protectionist Society. And I guess it's all about trying to bring it all together. I mean, we've heard from a couple of really high-level professionals in terms of their aspects about what it means to people, not only just here, but right around Australia in terms of what's going on. But where it's all started, and this is an area that we don't play, and it's an area around policy, and it's around world policy, and it's around net zero. And you're hearing a lot in the media at the moment, obviously the federal government, and I think today Barnaby and Michael McCormick, the two parallels in the party, came together and made a decision they're going to push a net zero. But what does that actually mean? Well, what it means is actually why you're all here tonight. Because at the end of the day, net zero is about supposedly making the world a better place and not affecting anybody. And one of the critical parts for this region to understand is that net zero, when they signed the agreement, and this is all the parties all around the world, all the countries all around the world signed, no food producing land was to be impacted by net zero. And then why are we all here tonight? And that's the problem. So coming back to the micro level, which is us, here in the room and in other parts of Victoria, we've got poor government policy on a number of fronts. And a bit of a plug for next week, we've got another rally in Melbourne on Wednesday, and that's about our access rights. Tonight on Sky, I can release it now because I've just had a message from them. They had the Institute for Public Affairs. They put together a paper. They're actually briefing both sides of government. They play apolitical. And that paper is basically saying that once this legislation is put in, we'll be the most draconian state that's ever been put in existence. And here we are in Victoria, for the reason we're here tonight. Now, at the local level, what we're all really concerned about is the human factor, the health and well-being of everybody. Because at the moment, we're seeing people getting torn apart, regardless whether it's in mining or it's in the renewables or whatever, and it's all because of poor government policy. And that's what's driving it. And that's why we as a community need to be able to come out and talk about what's going on. There's been a lot in the media and there's been meetings of various fashions right around talking about different aspects. But what we wanted to do tonight was to bring our group's discussions and beliefs, I suppose, for want of words, and bring some experts who have no vested interest in this whatsoever. They are volunteers, like the rest of us, and they are able to speak freely in terms of their positions and their critique of what they're seeing. And what they've said here tonight is poor government policy. And so one of the things that really strikes me is that this region has always been one where it's dry, we have seasons like we've had at the moment, where it's dry, and then we have to produce something, and then the economy flows, and then it stops and it starts and it goes. What we're also seeing is that long term, and we're talking not just for our generation, we're talking for the generations to come, the reliance that we have on the natural assets of the region, and the natural assets of water. Now at the moment, and I'm not sure where everybody's understanding of all the mines are on the proposed mines are in the room, but we've got mine-free Mallee farms, which is up Albert, up the other side. We've got Dunmunkle Land Protection Group, which is a group that I chair, was formed 40 years ago over the fact that they wanted to mine the soils in Wimmera, and they set up a site out at the Horsham. A lot of people in the room will remember the Dooen drung mine out here at the Horsham. And so that was formed then, and now we've rebuilt it again and brought it back to life because we have to, because we've got the Donald Mineral Sands project, which is over at Bangina essentially for want of location, and they're now putting pressure on. They've been granted a mining licence, and all at the same time on the back of the fact that all the information that we're hearing has been either doctored or misrepresented, and we've had a minister that's had a department where I've got a big focus on the departments at the moment. They are controlling too much of the state, and they are overruling almost even the ministers themselves in their determination around a lot of this stuff. And it's really disappointing that they don't even and haven't taken the time to come up to this community and other communities and actually visit and take the time to actually unpack what's going on in a sensible fashion, because it's just the government is forcing it down on us instead of actually thinking about how can we benefit the region better. And so with water is crucial, and with these mines and the Avonbank mine out here, which I want to come to, because that's the one that will touch Horsham massively. Water is crucial, so 8 gigalitres taken out of the Donald Mineral Sands in their own terms, taken out of the pipeline. They actually own this water, they've already bought it some years ago now off GLM Water, and that was access water. And everybody in the room knows just how low the water supplies are at the moment. Now, if you factor in that you're actually going to take that amount of water out of the system every year, and then we have the requirement to up north of the mine-free Mallee farms, the Albert gets going, and then the Avonbank mine as well, we won't have any water for the lakes, because guess what? The lakes are the last resort of life. And the good practices of farmers have actually meant that we're using more water to produce more, so there's less runoff. Naturally happens. So all those catchments like Crowlands down Elmhurst, all those areas that used to feed quite a lot into the Wimmera River, farmers now are actually keeping that on their land with the soil techniques that we have, and that's a big problem for us. And when you look out a long term, and we had a great meeting yesterday with Batten's office in Melbourne, talking about the future of this region and talking about what we think we need to do to make sure that good government policy finally starts to arrive again and give people a little bit of hope. And that's, I suppose, the focus for us now is to actually do that, because water, and I don't think one was saying this, but he had a vision that he wanted a 100-year water plant, because guess what? We're going to have less of it. And if we're using it just to suppress dust in a mine, Is that a sensible use of it? Not in my lifetime. And the impacts on Horsham itself, the Avonbank mine out here, we have one of the best industrial areas built on the back of agriculture, right at our doorstep. And what are we doing? We're placing a toxic dump right next door to it, and international visitors will come here. They will come here, they do come here already, and they will see that. And guess what? We're not talking about losing and gaining jobs, as like Bill said. It's a bit of a cost, like a checkerboard with people moving around. But the reality is we face the potential of losing probably 400 or 500 jobs out here on the back of just one mine. Because I can tell you right now that as the leader of the national grains industry, this has worried me for some time, because it is about perception, and it is about the fact that the markets that pay the most money really value the fact that their food is clean and green. And what are we going to do? And we're going to have dust going all over. And so all this talk about the jobs we're going to create, I'm talking about the jobs we're going to lose. Now the mine out here at Dunmunkle Sands, you know, the estimation there is it's going to create, I think it was about 100 odd jobs, 170 jobs. And I'm saying that we'll probably lose 100 jobs because the indirect flow-on effects is a massive impact. Now I'll come right down to the Horsham level. Now, if people here in the town and the businesses are probably really concerned about what we're hearing and what we're saying and what I'm saying, and the fact is that if you've got to increase the cost in your business to pay labour to work in your business, that makes you eventually massively impacted because you've got to pay more cost. Because what happens is you're paying more cost, it's putting more cost on the goods, so you get a return, and the market out there decides, well, I'll go somewhere else. And that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about that on the Horsham businesses and all the talk that a few might get a few shackles and they're all out self-promoting it and saying how great it is. I'm worried about those businesses that are actually going to be massively impacted, lose their workers to the mine, and that's because, you know, the experts tell us they just move around. And so that's going to be a huge impact on this town. In regards to the smaller towns, it's fanciful to think that somebody's going to uproot themselves from somewhere where the services are close and handy and move themselves to our small communities. As much as I'd love them to do it, the reality of life is that they won't. And so I think that people have just got to recognise some of the facts of life and actually listen to what's being said. And I just hope to God that we can change the government at the next election, because at the moment this state is going backwards at such a rate of knots that it's hurting everybody. So, look, I could have said more, Ross, but that's for 10 minutes, and I think there'll be plenty of questions. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I should finish. Dr. John's book, we do have some copies here tonight. They are available for $20. That's the cost of the printing. So if you want to catch up with Julie, I think most people know my wife, Julie. I think she's wearing an orange jumper tonight. So, yeah, she's out the back sorting out food. And please, you know, there's a few copies, grab them. It's a great read. It's the facts. It's the truth of it in terms of the soil restoration. And thanks very much to you, Ross, and the group for all coming on tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Any questions? This metal bit over here has been pretty quiet. The top up the back is pretty quiet. Oh, yep, in the middle there.
Thanks, Ross. So my question is to Andrew, your last comment being in regard to the change in government. How do we achieve that change? Seriously.
Well, the power of the people is starting to rise. There's no question of that. I mean, we saw that a couple of months ago in Melbourne. We had the police estimated the crowd somewhere between 5,000 and 8,000 people that attended that rally. And I don't think we'll get anywhere near that on Wednesday, but there is a lot more expression of interest and a lot more feeling coming through the community. Interestingly, what we are noticing on our chat socials and websites is that this particular rally, 44% of the interest is coming from metropolitan Melbourne. So out of the 65,000 hits, 44% of them are all in Melbourne. So I think it could be something quite unique. I'm obviously trying to build a lot of impact into next week. There'll be a lot of bits and pieces, but our focus is obviously around the new legislation that they're trying to impose on us as a society in general. It's not just farmers affected by this, by the way. This actually is you or anybody in the room here with an asset. You are affected by this piece of legislation, just like the emergency volunteers and services tax they're putting on. And so the connection is starting to build. I mean, I'd have to say, like, and in this room quite easily, how the hell would farmers stand with United Firefighters Union to actually extract and position ourselves? Because guess what was a common cause? And we saw it today with Barnaby and Michael actually coming together. I know both of them, by God, they've both got different attitudes. And they've come together on a common cause as well, because they're seeing it wrecking Australia as well. And so we've got to start that top-end policy, as I said, but here at the local level, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's the power of the people. I feel like it's rising. Get stuck into the local member and make sure that, Emma's working for us as well. And the National Party, they represent us here, so make sure we do that. But if you can get on board and help us wherever you can, I think that'd be much appreciated. And a lot of people in the room have got social media, so use it.
There's one here.
Just on the back of what Andrew said about the export markets at Dooen, our farm is completely impacted by the Avonbank, and the mining companies told us that we can't live in our home for the life of the mine, which is 36 years, because of toxic dust, noise, vibration and other things. But yet on the other side of the processing plant and where they're going to process all the minerals is Longeron College. You've got the community of Dooen, you've got the community of Jung. Why aren't they treated the same as us when we can't live in our home, but yet they clearly haven't been considered? And a lot of people don't realise that we're talking uranium, radioactive dust. How is that going to impact people's rainwater tanks? It's only 8 kilometres from Horsham. And my concern with the EES and the IAC panellists, all the information provided is being provided by the proponent, which is the mining company. It's all their data. It's not independent.
I think that's more of a comment on it, but it's exactly, if we had more time, we would have been on that, but spot on. Because, falsely mining a product, why would a uranium company invest in the Diamond Mineral Sands project with 180 million? Because that's all the money they've got at the moment, if they didn't believe that they were going to extract something from it. And I think it was raised here earlier as well. If we are going to mine these things, why the hell are we giving it away? 2.75 cents in every dollar. To me, in this day and age, doesn't cut it anyway. So we're really, really bad at, and I think the gentleman down here's question, we caught most of it, wasn't real clear, but your question is so valid that we give away our assets here in Australia, and again, it all comes down to one thing: poor government policy.
Thank you. That was an excellent eulogy on poor government policy, Andrew, and we're glad you came along to the funeral of poor government policy. Andrea Cross is the next speaker, a business person from Horsham. Thank you, Andrea.
Does the clicker work? I don't have to be yelling out next. I'll give it a crack. Hello everybody, and thanks for coming tonight. My name is Andrea Cross, and yes, I am a local businesswoman, but I'm also a third generation farmer, and we've got 3 sons, and 2 of them in the agricultural business as well. So I'm passionate about agriculture, and the photo that you see there on screen is back in 2022. while I was still naive and stupid, really. I didn't know how stupid I was at that point in time when I was heading to speak to some women about how good food is to eat. So that was 2022. In 2023, I was invited to visit the office of Avonbank Mines for information and to continue believing that mining is good for Horsham's economy. You know, the 200 jobs that were being talked about was one of those things that caught my attention, because I really believed at the time that a mine here in Horsham was going to save us. Water was on the radar that day, and we were assured that there'd be no problems at all. There's plenty where that comes from. So it was quite a jovial presentation in the office there, and we looked at the 3D interpretation, which looked quite simple. And guess what? I was invited to send in a submission, wasn't I? And in my naivety, I did. I wrote to wherever it had to go, yes, mining for Horsham, make it a better place. But at the same time, I also put in a submission on behalf of my husband and my building business. And as Andrew alluded before, I was concerned about tradesmen. In the building industry, we are short of tradesmen. We've been crying out for tradesmen for years. And my greatest concern was that if our staff went to work for the mines, where would that leave us as builders? Where would that leave you as consumers who want to build a new house or do a renovation? However, I pressed send and thought nothing of it. So life resumed for me. For 2 years I've been walking the dirt roads every morning of Dooen, Mallee and Dooen, and I continue to do so. And I admire the majestic landscape, as I'm sure so many of you do, and appreciate the beautiful sunrises we have. Getting back to that submission, I didn't really know the impact that it would have. The one that I wrote on behalf of Andrea Cross, this is going to make Horsham great. I had the patriarch of the Johns family come and see me. Max came to me with tears in his eyes, and he said to me, Andrea, why did you do that? I knew what he was talking about. But I also believed that mining was going to fix Horsham. And I said, it'll be right, Max, don't worry. And he said, but that's my land, my family's land, my house, and we're going to lose it. So who else had I impacted with my submission to support mining? I don't know, but I know that I impacted the Johns family significantly, and it impacted my relationship with Donna, whom I've known for so many years. In March that year, I began having a little bit of a look a little bit further around town, and I drove out to Murrawara, where those hideous wind turbines are. They're enormous, and so instead of walking on the dirt roads that day, I actually walked around these big beasts. So this was March 2024. And that same year, my middle son, who's a livestock agent, came home from Kangaroo Island and started playing footy with Minya Patoa, the home of the Johns family. Life continued, but I noticed that Donna Johns, whose smile can light up a room, was distinctly dull whenever I saw her at the footy. I knew I had overstepped the boundaries of friendship, but I was too gutless to fix I was out of my territory and life continued. Summer arrived and harvest came. And then on the 14th of December, a colleague came to me and said that she wanted to do some business with me. And she had the backing of Squadron Energy from Murrawara and wherever else they are. They are big players in this field. I said to her, do you think it's wise to be supported by funding from a renewables company? And she said, someone's got to take the money, Andrea, might as well be me. That same month, I met Donna in the plaza and said hello. But Donna didn't say hello back. And I floundered for words, and they remained silent. I knew I had hurt a friend. And this is what these renewables are doing to us. They're dividing our friendships, they're dividing our community. In February 2025, so a month or 2 months later, a passionate Facebook friend posted a story of her experience. And she made it very clear that events that supported renewables while not supporting rural women were not compatible. You see, I'd met Becky in 2022. She was a sponsor and I was a guest speaker. Our passion for supporting rural women in regional Victoria was shared. Our shared values threw us into an unexpected friendship. I continued my journey of discovery. And while I was out walking, I would do some Googling and see where there's been mining that's been, where are they looking? Who are they looking at? What land are they looking at? I only live a kilometre out of town, but I'm surrounded by farmland. I live north of Horsham at Dooen, it says it's Dooen. And I also wanted to highlight the no-res map, which Julie, I made the slide. I got it on here for you. Because what you see there in pink is the current mapping of farmers in the Wimmera Mallee that are opposed to renewable energy projects and infrastructure on their land. That's a lot of pink you can see there, ladies and gentlemen. And then, on April the 14th this year, I went to the meeting at Dooen because my address is Dooen 3401. And a couple of days after going to that meeting, I put a post on my Facebook page, and if you can see it, there's 413 shares, 220 comments and 461 responses. Now, on an ordinary person's social media page, that is crazy. That doesn't happen. Why did it happen? Well, this is what I wrote. As my address is Dooen 3401, I was invited by the City Council to attend a gathering at the Dooen Hall to hear what people had to say who were directly and indirectly impacted by the proposed Avonbank mine by Wallaloo Resources. We had our councillors there who were a cohesive bunch. But if anyone should be highlighted, it should be Donna Johns. What an incredible woman she is. Now, I'm feeling overwhelmed with the few months of investigations that I've done. Donna's been doing this for years, and her family's been doing it for years, and so many other people have been doing this for years. They are exhausted. I'm puffed, but they're exhausted. She confidently delivered her list of questions and in most instances knew the answers. But for numbnuts like myself, I was possibly the only numbnut there, she blew me out of the water with her knowledge. The amount of investigation this woman has undertaken to try and save their generational farm has to be commended, but she's not finished yet. I've been slowly gathering intelligence on the effects of this particular mine after changing my opinion about what I thought the benefits would be to the community, and I stand to be corrected. I publicly admit I was so wrong. I was one who was prepared to take money, not knowing it was to their benefit so they could tick the community engagement or social licence box for government satisfaction. I've heard people say, and I actually live with one, the mines won't worry me, I don't live near them. People have also admitted to me that they know absolutely nothing about what's going on. Now, I can't recall everything I heard that night, but here's just a few things I learned which continued to awaken me in my journey to the truth of what's really going on and what the impacts will be to our municipality in generations to come. Our home is less than 14 kilometres from the current proposal of Avonbank and much closer to the next one. Then there'll be another and another until it ends up in my backyard. It just won't stop with this 3,400 hectares or so. They'll swallow up lots more highly productive agricultural farmland, land that feeds the world, much like wind turbines and solar parks are doing, where they're just in someone else's paddocks until they end up in my few miserable hectares. The foreign owners of this Australian listed company have bought a licence and a lot of water, which we heard about before. The dust. How would that impact air conditioners in the summer residences and commercial buildings within cooee of the mine? Has there been a study on that? And what about the neighbouring businesses at the freight hub, which we talked about before? We know that it wasn't that long ago we came out of a 13-year drought and we haven't had much rain over the past 12 months. The Wimmera is a low rainfall area. What about water restrictions? Will the mines have to abide by them? These mongrels have taken our water rights away in one fell swoop with that enormous purchase. There'll be no pipeline saving water to allocate to your garden, my Horsham friends. It'll be back to pebble stone gardens and yuccas. So if this mine goes ahead, remember I wrote this in April and I'm still learning. In 4 or 14 years' time, if we experience another big dry or long drought, they'll have to close it, leaving it open until it rains again. What happens to the employees? I suppose they'll go to another mine because that's what they're doing, because we're seeing it on social media now, how people are saying, I'm a backpacker, I'm working at the solar farm, I just need somewhere to live, has anyone got a room? This is what I thought was going to make Horsham great. The February winds will blow the dust onto your roof, and when it rains, it will end up in your rainwater tank. When Avonbank goes ahead, local businesses like Shane and I will have to compete not only for staff, but try and match the wages mining offers to retain staff. That means when you want a renovation done or a new house built, it will cost you more. Someone has to pay. So it might as well be you, because Shane and I aren't a bank. There are currently 250 people looking for permanent homes in our community today. United Care has 50 properties they manage to house some of our homeless, but it's a swinging door. Some say a village will be built to accommodate the workers. What will a village look like at the end of the mine's life? A ghost town? Or just a mess as we see turbine blades being buried on farms? Will the remnants be bulldozed into a hole in the ground? Will the village provide a great lifestyle for workers? Does it have the potential to have an impact on people's health and well-being? How will it impact our current stretched beyond measure health system at Wimmera Healthcare Group? Perhaps Wimmera Resources will have a magic wand to fix the broken hospital. Mining companies don't pay rates, so if the state government refuses to cop up to pay Horsham Rural City Council, who will? You, that too. One thing which wasn't mentioned was the land value and houses within the vicinity of the mine. Chances are they won't be going up in price. Will Horsham be known as a mining city? The residents of Dooen community chose to buy their homes there. Even if they wanted to sell today, how much value has already been lost? Staying isn't safe, and selling isn't profitable. Imagine if that was your house. Once mined, the land will never return to its original structure, which we've heard before. So, I guess my message here is that communication is key, but let's not ignore what's going on in our backyard. So that post reached, I don't know how many thousand people, but the power of social media is powerful, and as a community, we can get together and we can make change. And like you asked, Leonie, how are we going to change this government? We have to do it. It's up to us. It's up to you and it's up to me. So, nearly finished. On Anzac Day this year, I got a phone call from a detective. They wanted to know whether I'd been paid or coerced to put that submission in. That hit home, let me tell you. 3 days later, I went to the Wimmera Mallee Environmental and Agricultural Protection Association meeting and met the most incredible man in Raymond Broomhall, who had some unbelievable facts and figures. And I'm not going to share them with you now, but if you want to talk to WMEAP, they will be able to tell you. So from that, I felt it was time to gather Horsham residents and friends from outlying communities to come together and have what we have tonight. It's time to band together and find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, which I feel I captured last night. The rainbow that supports food and fibre on prime agricultural land. Thank you.
Now that was a real tear-jerker. I really didn't know quite what to expect, but that was heartfelt. And I guess I'll sort of convey a little tiny story here. I did an interview on Sky recently, and I tried to explain how farmers feel about their land. And what I explained was it was like how Indigenous people feel about connection to country. We don't actually feel we own the country. I feel that the country owns me. And the city people can't quite understand that. I thought you articulated that very well, Andrea. Any questions for Andrea? Kelvin, down the front, if it's possible. Ian's on the way, Kelvin. And another question, if it's possible, up the back, or in the front again, right out, beautiful, next one.
One of the statements that Andrea made is that mining companies don't pay rates. Farmers own the land, they pay the rates. If the mining companies are not going to be paying rates, as the mining area enlarges, the farmers are going to have to pay higher rates to compensate to get the shire rate.
Thanks.
Or government policy.
Well, I think you should answer that.
Thanks for the question. Look, I'm no expert, but that's what I heard, that the mining companies, they don't pay the rates on the land that they get. Yet who does pay? It will be us.
I do feel corporates negotiate the deals with government, and ordinary, everyday Australians get the raw end of the deal. And that happens in a lot of instances, whether it's renewable energy, whether it's mining. Government is kowtowing to corporates and multinationals in a way that I think is unacceptable in Australia. The question over here.
Thank you. This one's just for Andrea. We talk about the sponsorship that comes from these big corporate groups. They've got massive money coming into our communities. We all know we're struggling. Where do we look for this sponsorship within us? Because I think as a community, people are getting a lot more aware of, and even events like reading the fine print where the sponsorship's coming from. But especially with you, with your community groups, so where do you look now? What's the, I guess the answer, not the answer, but I know it's tricky, but I guess money's got to come from somewhere for these groups.
Great question, Becky. Well, up until now, we've survived by getting sponsorship and grants from state government agencies, local businesses. We're going to have to call on our local businesses, and do we call on our farmers? You know, there could be a huge impact by talking directly to farmers, but everybody's hurting. Everybody's hurting. So I don't know what the future in that space looks like. No, definitely not.
Becky, if I may, country communities have amazing capacity to connect, and I've seen it particularly in small communities where people that are a bit down on their luck are actually helped out. And farming communities and regional communities have that community connection, but you go to the cities, it doesn't quite feel the same. So I think when the chips are down, the community stands up and says, we're going to stand together. And then with that comment, I'm going to introduce Ben Duxon. Ben Duxon runs a merino stud, multi-purpose merinos at Kenya, a very beautiful little farming community, and I absolutely love Kenya to death. It's got a lot of really genuine, good country people, and I'll pass the podium over to Ben.
Thanks, Ross, and thanks for the invite tonight. Thank you all for turning up here in Horsham. My project is the VNI West. Comes into our farming land out at Kenya, as Ross said. And we didn't really see it until about March 2023, when the Weekly Times come out with a big pink blob that we thought, hang on, that's going near us. And I'd been down to Melbourne a lot. I'd seen the Stop AusNet towers. I've been over to Dales with Piss Off AusNet. But I actually hadn't taken too much notice of it. I didn't actually know what it was about. So for us, and for me being here, and we're into our third year of fighting this battle, we've got skin in the game because it's coming through our land and it has a massive impact on our community. But here tonight, the Horsham residents need to know of the energy policy that Australia is heading down. And we're heading down a government-induced train wreck. It is government-induced. And you'll get a theme from what I'm saying tonight, is the government is the problem here. There is no one else. Our fight is only with the government. It's with no one else. They're supposed to be the guidelines for our life here. They certainly aren't that at the moment. But it is an Albanese, it is a Bowen, it is an Allen, it is a D'Ambrosio train wreck waiting to happen. And everyone needs to understand why. It's not because us as farmers are holding it up, which they'll blame. They'll blame us. When they hit an energy crisis and the lights go out, they'll blame the farmers for not agreeing to actually let him on VNI West. So with transmission lines, you do not get an option. There's no opt-in and opt-out. With solar factories, with batteries, and with wind factories, you get an option to opt-in or opt-out. We don't get that. We get 500 kVA lines put where they determine. The government determines where they're putting it. We have no say in this. None of this makes any sense. And I'll hopefully take you on a journey and let you make your own decisions of how much sense any of this makes. Net zero is what this is all about, obviously. 70% of the world's emitters in pollution are getting out of net zero, or weren't even in net zero. Australia's under 1%, or we're probably a little bit over that, someone will pick me up on this. But a lot of that comes from the coal and we export overseas. Andrew Weidemann picked up on before the Paris Agreement. Green energy cannot be done in areas where agricultural land is inhibited. That was the Paris Agreement. These people made these rules. And now we see the total destruction. Prime agricultural land coming through our land. We're an energy-rich country. We have massive coal reserves, we have massive gas reserves, we have massive uranium. And we're heading to an energy crisis, and we're exporting coal and gas overseas, and iron ore, and minerals that they're going to dig up here, and we ship it off overseas, and we bring it back in the form of a wind tower that produces 2,200 tonne of concrete, and the Murra ones, I'm telling you the small ones, we're up to 280 metres big now, 2,200 metres of concrete and steel. And they're not renewables, they're replaceables because they're done in 15 to 25 years. And they work 30% of the time. And solar, we all know solar, sun doesn't shine the whole amount of time. The problem we have here is that they're trying to baseload Australia's energy grid with replaceables. It's not possible. It is not possible. We need a baseload. Otherwise, we lose industry because there's no power. And anyone who's up with AI and data centres at the moment, they're a massive user of power that are coming into our country. We're doing EVs, the whole lot. We are hurtling towards a government-induced energy crisis that no one here could predict what they're getting us into. Stop selling coal and gas tomorrow, our emissions drop straight away, we keep the energy here. Make it make sense that we don't do all this sort of stuff. Make it make sense to me. 3 years in, and we go to meetings up and down the line, VNI West, that's Renewables and all that sort of stuff, and none of this makes any sense. The environment, as I said, 2,200 tonnes of concrete. The blades on these wind factories are not recyclable. They have to be buried on site. The minerals need to be dug up here, as I said before, replaced every 15 to 20 years, 30% operational time. So they don't use the concrete pads again. Make this make sense, it makes no sense. And you know what will happen, if we hurdle down this path, wind factories will we need to replace them in 15 years. In 200 years' time, we've got 8 of those pads sitting around. Our great-grandkids and great-great-grandkids are going to look around this earth and go, what the heck coal started this? Seriously, if that's their answer to energy, is to keep putting up these disposables, and we cop it. We can't cop this. We're not going to cop this. And the only reason we stand up, because we know it doesn't work for any of Australians. And anyone that owns a PowerPoint will be affected. If you own a household of PowerPoint, you will pay. They keep telling us it's the cheapest form of energy. It is not the cheapest form of energy. It's not the socially acceptable form of energy, and it's not environmentally friendly. If you go to Queensland and look at the map up there, wildernesses, beautiful national parks are being destroyed out of this. It is not, for our area, not for a reliable energy source. The Victorian government themselves put out a paper, it's no longer to be able to found on the internet. 70% of Victorian agricultural land, that's not all our land, it's agricultural land, needs to be taken up for wind factories, solar factories, batteries, synchronised condensers. That doesn't even include mining in this. We overlay mining on top of this. What is left? Where is our food security and affordability? And it's an area we need to get down to the city, and we need to do it better. I admit that, is to actually educate But it's fantastic that you all turned up here, because it's about educating. We need to get down there. And I reckon the city people love farmers. I don't think they hate us like the government. The government hate us. I was in Jackie Lamb, we've been camping in Jackie Lambie's offices probably 18 months ago or something, and I said, what's wrong with these Labor governments? What is it? And she goes, they hate farmers. What are you talking about? They hate us. And none of the energy's used out here, it's used in Melbourne. Why should we're farmers for food and fibre out here, we're not energy farmers. We're not putting up with this. Make it make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. If what I'm saying makes sense, pull me aside later on and tell me you're wrong, this does make sense. So we have potential hosts out there. And I just call them needy, greedy. They're just after the money. That's it. But they keep banging on about how it's going to be great for community and jobs. It's a sugar hit of jobs, as we've already heard tonight. It's a round and round, them checkerboard and all that sort of stuff. And you know what? One burnt down at Bulgana, down at South Stall there the other day. A blade burnt down. If you go there now, 7 weeks later, there's still debris on the ground there. They don't care, these energy companies. They get their subsidies, and this is all about subsidies. And I'll give this is where the government comes in, because they are fully corrupt on this. They've all got their snouts in the trough. They're all getting a payback there somewhere. And this is too good of a gig to be on. And they're telling us it's the cheapest form. Well, it's not the cheapest form. It's not the best for Australia. There's no way. As I said, it's a sugar hit of jobs. You might see there's a solar factory going out the road here, so you want to drive in. It's probably a sugar hit of pubs and cafes and that. Housing, I don't know, we're in a housing crisis. I don't know where they're being housed and all that sort of stuff. On site. I'll put up donors and pull them down when they go. Make it make sense to me. If you reckon I'm talking absolute crap, make it make sense to me, because it doesn't. And then the government comes in with a big stick. And we have been saying for 2 years, come and compulsory acquire us. You know, let us get on with our lives. If you want to do it, because that's the only option. That's the only option they've got. For my community, on VNI West, and the map's full, our Northern Grampians area full, 100% don't want it. Come and compulsory. We've been telling for 2 years. And you know what? I reckon this is the only time they've listened. Because what they do, they go and change legislation as they're going to do next week. And they're not going to try and compulsory acquire. They're going to change the legislation that allows them ion farm. So they don't have to. So then we're the bad guys, because we're breaking the law. A $12,210 fine. I've got the bucket here. It's quite appropriate to be in the church and rattle the tins. If you can help out with the fine, that'd be fantastic. $12,210 for me objecting for them to come on my land. Another $4,000 if I don't identify as the property owner. And $1,200 if I dare put up a sign that is against their project. This isn't democracy. It's dictatorship. 100% dictatorship. And they think they can get away with it. Well, they can't. Our area won't let it. We will not let them get away with this. It's not an industry, it's a subsidy. If you come to any country and try and put subsidies into an area, it's not going to work. It needs subsidies to work. It's not an industry. So the property rights is what we're doing next week. And we find, and that'll be everyone. It'll be like me going to Stephen Allen's office and rearranging the furniture, and the authorities come in and they fine her for me rearranging her furniture. And then they give her another $4,000 because she didn't identify who she was.
Give her a crack.
Make it make sense. Like, seriously. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Property rights. We've got people that live within 1 kilometre of a wind factory. they're not allowed to build a house where they're on their land, it's their land, they're not allowed to build their own house on their own land because they're in the 1 kilometre buffer zone for wind towers to go up. Is that fair? On the mining side, we've got an 80-year-old veteran out at Banyina who's raised a family there, 8 kids. And he has to be removed from his family home. Is that fair? Is that a government that's actually out there listening to their people? They're the guidelines. They're not, they don't make the rules, they do make the rules. But how do they do that to people? And I'll tell you, they don't care. They've got their nose in the trough, and it's all about themselves. Like, Ross told me this one, but farmers are probably the biggest capitalists around, aren't they? But it's turned around. The government are becoming the biggest capitalist people around. If you go through their portfolios, what they own, all that sort of stuff. And yet, well, we know where it's coming from. Intergenerational farms around our area, as you all know. We've had 3 generations of people fighting these people. And we give them a good crap, they can't give crap. We deny them access, they're not allowed on the land, but they'll come and try and drill on the roadside. So we'll get down there, we've got WhatsApps, we'll get down there and we'll try and move them on. We'll have an argument with them, we'll say you're not wanted and all that sort of stuff. So what happens now is they bring security guards out with us. So we've got security guards driving around our area. Do you reckon that's safe for our women and children out there? And on the women and children, we've had land liaison officers that can't find who the landowner is. So some widowed people who've got security cameras up, they'll just go into their house and put it on the back door. Or they'll ask, where's your mother-in-law or something? They'll go into town and try and track her down. They'll go when the husbands are out to work, so they'll go in the middle of the day or something. This is the low-life type of people that we're trying to deal with out there. Her auntie, she's involved, she's got the country there. She's mid-70s. She lives by herself. She's got a heart problem as well. But she's got a land liaison officer that does not stop ringing and does not stop texting. This is harassment. And this is what they do. This is what they do. It's continual harassment. And then, when we try and do something, they'll go and run to the cops and say, we've been with our guys. Make it make sense. If you can make it make sense, come up and talk to me. With the subsidised industry, reliability will decrease with these disposables. Prices will go up. Someone told me that their prices for energy is not going up. Taxpayers' money will go overseas. I heard today, someone told me today, 5,136 businesses in Victoria have gone in the last 12 months. The biggest reason citing labour and energy costs as a factor. Now, free enterprise is the most noble thing to do in the world. If we can have free enterprise, we'll pay for everything. But the government doesn't want us to have that. We've got our anti-VNI West map, and I'm back to the front. Let's get a cut out. Our anti-VNI West map, and then the one that Andrea had on there before was the anti-res map as well, which one of our members, Marcy McIntyre and Julie, have done a fantastic job. And that's what we're seeing. And this is the objection against any wind farms out there. Of us being in res. So what do they do? Have a look at this area. It's got pretty heavy there. There's a darker shade, because people just want to get adding their name. They put this area as their res zone. After thousands of suspicions, online consultation, all that sort of stuff, they put it right where the people are most against it. Make it make sense to me. We need to break the cycle of these corrupt governments. We need to break the cycle. It can't happen in a hurry. I know that. But a shout out to our Northern Grampian Shire Council, specifically the councils Props, Blake and Emerson, who on Monday voted they don't want our shire to be involved in arrears. That's the way it will happen. It'll break down one by one. But we have to stop this cycle of corrupt governance. The gates are locked. People are ready, united, and we're ready to fight. Whilst we've got breath in our bodies, we will keep fighting. We won't let them on our land, and we'll win. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. That was very powerful. And I was wondering whether we were sheep walking away from us up there. Did you take that photo? Andrea took the photo. Any questions to Ben? 2 questions to Ben, if that's possible. One down here in the front. And the next question.
Thank you very much, Ross. Ben and Andrew, this question is probably directed more to you because we are the growers of food and fibre. And before even the mining gets going and once the transmission lines are in place, there will be huge impacts on the way that you farm. I believe I would like you to share how you go about it with your air seeders and boom sprays and how to fight a fire. I wonder if you could share that with people who don't know about these parts, please.
I'm going to leave the boom spray and the air seeders to Andrew, but we actually we mainly sheep. So 500 kVA lines coming through our place. We've got country that's really good landing country. They've got technology now with facial recognition out in the paddock. We use electronic tags, there's collars, there's virtual fencing and all this sort of stuff. There's no way we could run any of that stuff under a VNI West line, a 500 kVA line. There's no way, we can't use that technology. And same with the cropping's getting bigger and all that sort of stuff. So that's an impost onto our business, isn't it? So, but taking those rights away is hard enough. So, Andrew or Ross?
All right, we'll just keep going with the second question, if that's okay.
You were speaking earlier on about a fine of $12,210. I read somewhere the other day that a corporate will be charged $48,000. Does that mean that any farm that's operating as proprietary limited will come under the banner of a corporate?
Yep. Andrew says yes.
The answer is yes. So if you're a corporate or a company, 48,000. Okay, well that concludes the presentations, and I was planning to finish by 9, but what I'm planning to do now, given we've got such a short period of time, I'm going to extend it by 15 minutes. If anyone doesn't want me to do that, put up their hand right now. Thank you. That was a unanimous support for an additional 15 minutes of question time with the panel. I would like to sort of convey why agriculture is important. Agriculture is important to humanity, the whole world, because there's 8.2 billion people on the planet today, and by 2061, the United Nations Population Committee is forecasting 10 billion people. That's an increase of almost 20% of populations of humans. Why is agriculture important to Australia? Australian farmers feed the country. We feed everyone in Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide, Brisbane, every Australian. And we provide 14% of our export revenue. 14%. Why is agriculture important to Victoria? Because Victorian farmers control 1.5% of Australia's land mass, which is fairly small. And yet Victoria global food security, our governments have forgotten that. So what I'll do is I'll briefly summarise. John presented an excellent presentation on the rehabilitation or lack of rehabilitation of agricultural land by mining, particularly focused on the performance and agricultural performance of it. Bill presented a very articulate economic evaluation of agriculture versus mining and what should be considered. Andrew, as usual, presented, I think, the best presentation, very experienced, very polished, very committed to agriculture. Andrea has the awarded most emotional speech, which I thought was sensational and heartfelt. And I think that was really important for the community to hear. And Ben Duxon is passionate that this poor government policy has got to stop. Government, it's a really hard thing to have a battle with government when they make the rules. So we've got to be very firm, we've got to stand up as a community, and we've got to work together to deliver an outcome, because trampling free speech in Australia is not on. We haven't got a Chinese name for Victoria yet. It's not an authoritarian country, state. So any questions to the panel? Yes, Claire. And keep the hands going up, or stand up in the aisle if you've got a question, would be probably the best way to go.
Ross, you mentioned the importance of agriculture to Australia. When you look at Donald Trump wanting to mine the Ukraine as well for critical minerals, that's another food bowl, which could well not be rehabilitated as well. The ongoing impact on agriculture and production of food over these however many years would be devastating given those population figures, I'd imagine. What we're talking here is stopping something that could have worldwide impacts, really. It's probably more a statement than a question. Well, how do we bring together all these issues like the rehabilitation, the economics, the social, etc.? How do we bring all those factors to policymakers soon, like tomorrow?
Well, I guess we've got to use social media, we've got to talk to our politicians, we've got to ring them, we've got to write them letters, and it's up to everyone to do this. It's not up to just these individuals here to do it. It's got to be a groundswell of people that are committed to producing a better Australia in the future. But what I will do, Bill might know the arable land per capita in the world.
No, I couldn't answer that.
Well, that's a good point. The arable land per capita in the world has been declining, so we're producing more and more food off less and less area. But at some point, our productivity won't be fast enough to fill the gap.
Yeah, no, productivity is the key to everyone's welfare, and especially in agriculture. And just to get it in perspective, agriculture was 15% of Australia's GDP in 1960, now it's 2%, right? Part of the reason, I spent half my time thinking you can always tell politicians that you can't tell them much. Well, you can tell them less now because agriculture is so less important in the economy. I hate to say it, but it's only 2%, right? We really struggle to get research investment in Australian agriculture, and research investment is a key to productivity. And so I hear what everyone's saying, but I really think it's because agriculture is such a smaller percentage of the total economy is why we really struggle to get heard. It's why we get policies made that are stupid. It's why we can't get the R&D that we need. And it's the fact of the matter is we feed 60 million people, which is 1% of the world population. We export 60% of what we produce, and so we're really good at it. But I see this in many contexts. I struggle, why are we struggling to be heard and all that? And I really think, one time in the federal budget every May, agriculture would be mentioned. You never hear the word than we've ever been. And so it really makes it hard to get the proper attention, get the analysis, get the respect I think agriculture deserves. But it is a fact. We are a small percentage, even though we're big. But just on back to the productivity one, Ross mentioned that there's another 2 billion people around the corner in the next 30 years. That's why I say to farmers around the world, we face the biggest challenges in the next 20, 30 years we'll ever face, because by 2100 there'll only be 11 billion, right? The population's going to flatten out. So it's only the next 30 years, I say to my students, in your careers, the next 30 years is when there's an extra 2 to 3 billion people around the corner. They're all going to be in the poorest countries of the world, and farmers around the world are going to face the biggest challenge I think they'll ever face, because then it's going to flatten out. So it makes all that just adds to what the points have been made about the importance of farming well and using our farmland that we can control as well as we can.
Thank you, Bill. Do you think you can lecture to the Victorian Parliament? That'd be a good thing. Question somewhere up the back.
One up here too, Ross.
Oh, there's one up the top first. There you go. I didn't see up the top. Yep, up the top.
There's a fair few of you that will know me and how passionate I am as to the farming community. I grew up on a farm, so I know exactly what all goes on with the farming. You all talk about how the farmers feed the world. So the first thing to do is stop the food going to the supermarkets. Stop it for a week. And that will soon make you sit up and think, where is the food coming from? I've openly said that to clients of mine. All we have to do is stop the food at the supermarket, block them up, and then they should all realise, where's food coming from?
Thank you, Barbara. Ben, would you like to say how we can block the food at the supermarket? Okay.
It's a fantastic idea, yeah. But we do need to remember here that the city people we feed aren't our enemy either. But I do understand the sentiments as well. If it was possible to starve government, that's what I'd do. If they're stupid enough to think, Jacinda Allen's stupid enough to think that all her government offices run on total renewable energy, that's all come out of the grid, which is not all renewable energy. If they're stupid enough to think that, they might be able to be stupid enough to not eat some of our food if we lock them in there for a while. Distribution is a big thing, all that sort of stuff. But I've had that sentiment for a long time, but the city folk aren't our enemy in this, it's the government.
Yes. Oh, yeah, Fletcher.
Sorry, another question for Ben. Did I read somewhere that the government or Weidemann or West are offered a bribe for $42,000 or something per kilometre? What's the worry if you're saying sticking together, but if they try and pick off one at a time, like farm might be in drought or something, if someone takes that, what's the go with that, or is everyone saying, no, that's it, bugger off?
You're exactly right, and that's probably something I should have put in there. So we're obviously dealing with government people here, and they think regional people can be bought out. They think country people can be bought out, and we got them scratching their heads. They've had James Burke's one out there. He's got 9 kilometres coming through, and it goes within 500 metres of his house. They offered to relocate him. It's what you do with reptiles and snakes, you relocate them. They offered to relocate him. Him and his family, it's just built a new house 3 or 4 years ago. Their dream home, that's where they want to live. James said no. And will people break? From what I see, and the people I deal with, I think their love for the land is only getting stronger. Their love for producing alcohol is their love for producing alcohol. Agriculture is only getting stronger. Their love for their family and their community is only getting stronger. So when you bring it back to that basics, I don't think money matters. Because it's where we want to live. And I can tell you, I honestly think everyone is getting, every time they offer more money to, and you're quite right, they'll just keep offering money because they don't want to fight at the gate with us. They don't want that getting on national television. And we'll video. We've got enough contacts with the media now that we'll put it up on social media. We'll put it up on mainstream media. They don't want to be seen there taking farmers out. They don't want to see police having pepper spray at us or something. We've got thousands of litres of that stuff. And it'll be civil disobedience. And as I said, people love their country, they love their family, they love producing, not alcohol, but agriculture, food and beverages. So, I don't see it as a threat. I think we've got enough people that put pressure on them to say, don't do this. There's enough work being done by heaps of people out there. So I don't think it's a
Thank you. In defence, Benny has been in Bendigo protesting this morning, so hence why he probably is hanging out for a drink.
Did he have any alcohol?
No, he didn't. And obviously the coffee wasn't strong enough. One thing I just want to mention, and it's very bit of a statement, mineral sands is now called a green mineral. It is a commodity that Renewables use. It is in the magnets in the turbines. The demand, and especially up at Goshen, we're from Birchip, Iluka have a retention licence there. We've got 700 turbines proposed around us. The demand for your mineral sands is coming out of the renewable push. So if you are for renewables but against mineral sands mining, Avonbank, Goshen, what else is going on? You need to learn the information and connect the dots. The other thing is VNI stands for Victorian Network New South Wales Interconnector. That is where these projects, especially up our way, want to get in. The likes of any are stopping the power from getting out. The power which should never have been put in our region, it should have been put where it's being used, where it's going to be sent, not in our agriculture region. My other concern is, and whether the panel can answer it or how you get the information out, have a passion for young people. You have Longrenon College out near this mine. I am worried that the principal will have reckless intent and could potentially be privately sued if any of her students become unwell from the monazite, and that will go for the mining hub and everything. I think this community has to educate themselves about the risk of that, and the water element was mentioned. We had dust storms before we got the rain. Yes, Birchip's probably dustier than down here, but you must educate yourself about the health risk because ultimately health is wealth.
All right, thank you, Julie. Is there anyone prepared to answer that question? Absolutely.
Look, I think, Julie, like you're right. I mean, and that's one of the major concerns, which is obviously what the government, the flawed information through that ES process didn't take into account. Receptors too far away from the actual mine, all these things they do to blind people. But I wouldn't want people going away from here tonight and think the world's hopeless. The reality is we're actually up and about, and there's a group that I'm chairing now, which is a formation of 27 groups right across Victoria, 3 in New South Wales, another one in Ross and I went to the other night down at Limestone Coast. They've joined up with us. There's some amazing people involved in these groups, and they are all actively looking at where we can change government policy to improve our lives. And what we're targeting at the moment, not only that, the group is working with the United Firefighters Union on a campaign. It's called Not in Our Name. And that campaign is actually taking on all the marginal seats. That's our plan. So we've got a strategy. We're not just standing up here and thinking, oh, the world's hopeless tonight. I don't want people to think that. We are actually working towards a plan, and that is taking this government down. It's also improving the coalition, because at the moment, they're a bit like Carlton. They've got a couple of players. They can't quite get there. But you know what? I reckon Carlton will win it in 2 or 3 years' time. And the reality is, that's what you've got to try and get the coalition across. They're not Collingwood at the moment, but they're going to be there. So, anyway, we've got to have a bit of fun. Look, the reality is, I think that when you go home tonight, don't walk out of here thinking that all things are bad. That's the last thing. Stay upbeat, stick together, look after your mates, pretty clear. You know, look after your mates. That's a campaign we actually launched at the BFF. Look after your mates, and you need to. And hopefully that, you know, what you're hearing here is all the stories behind it, and that message will get out through the community. I think there's about 300 here tonight that have booked in, and that's only, 1% of really the Horsham population. So, you know, we've got to be real about it. Maybe a lot of converted here in the room. The reality is, if somebody's come here tonight and sort of didn't know much about it, and they feel a bit uncomfortable about what they've heard, catch up with us after for a cuppa, or most of Victoria's got my mobile number. So, just call somebody. All right.
Thank you, Andrew. There's just one really serious point I've got to pick you up on, and that's Collingwood's doing much tougher than Carlton. Okay, more question, one down here.
It wasn't so much of a question, but it was whether you guys comprehend the Bills of Exchange 1909, and there's also legislation in Australia that states that you can make payment by the process of the Bills of Exchange for all your bills. We're working on a package at the moment. I run a group called Wimmera Law Group on Telegram, and we just put a package together to try and help farmers so they can actually pay these new taxes with the Bills of Exchange. And I just wonder whether I could perhaps meet some people at a later stage to discuss that and give them some information so they could learn and comprehend it. But as a community, if we did that and we all put the money...
Just hold the microphone a little closer.
Yeah, so if we all did that as a community and put that currency into a fund, then we could be very, very strong.
Did everyone hear that? Would you mind just saying, just briefly, the points?
Yeah. Okay. So we've done some research on the Bills of Exchange 1909, and there's also legislation in Victoria that states that the Bills of Exchange can be used for payment of any bills, as in gas, electric, council tax, land tax, fire tax. And we just put a package together so that people can comprehend how to do that correctly. A lot of people have used the Bills of Exchange already in Australia. I've got a lot of friends that have already paid land tax with over $5,000 land tax bills for small holdings. We've done freedom of information requests to the government, and it may be something that you as a group start informing the local farmers of how to do this, and if we did it as a community, we could put that fund into or we could put potentially an amount of that into a fund to support us.
Okay, well thank you for those ideas, and what we'll do is we'll talk about that and see if we can use it. I will say the Emergency Services and Volunteers Fund, which is 420% higher on farmland than residential property in Melbourne, is absolutely appalling. The other thing that I think is really appalling is the government's now going to tax unrealised gains. And I think that's a terribly bad principle, and if they're going to do that, they've got to tax their unrealised wages up front this year for the next 20 years' earnings. And I'll tell you what, that'll stop it dead. This is just totally ridiculous. It's absurd. Anyone like to comment? Would you like to comment on unrealised tax?
No, I don't want to go there.
That was a polite knockback, but I think we might ask you.
Ross is just worried about his ashtrays.
That's right. Well, ashtrays overflow. Another example of poor government policy, yes, in the middle.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much to all the presenters this evening. It's been fantastic. Questions probably to you, Andrew. The Wimmera Mallee has been quite a little prosperous area of recent years and quite resilient in the drier years. Going forward, have we forgotten about the increased opportunities that we may have to increase our value going forward? We're very innovative. We work through those trying times. What are the opportunities going forward that you see?
Yeah, look, thanks, Benny. Thanks, good question. And look, the reality is that the Wimmera has a great wealth of soil. I mean, we are sitting on only one of the other deposits in Australia of self-mulching grey clays, which are just unique. So we can produce some of the finest foods, but we can also produce some of the best canola, and Victoria is absolutely home for that. And there's a bit of a contract that's being done at the moment in WA, which we're working on with Qantas, CBH, GrainCorp, and looking at trying to value out a commodity and use it in the aviation industry. What I would love to see, and this is where we've got to be really strong, it's like when we put the research centre out here, that's only one of the 7 nodes in the world, sitting right next to this bloody mine they're proposing. That's only 1 in 7, and it's the only one in Southeast Asia, and it's here. And the reality is the work that we did, and I was personally involved in that, and to do that, you've got to be absolutely understanding the vision for this area. And I feel like we've lost our way there. We've been worrying about renewables and the mining and this net zero policy I talked about earlier. The thing is, we could potentially, if we play our cards right, and we've got the water, and we've got the people, and we've actually got the agricultural land here, produce our own fuel here. And that meets some of the targets that they were all talking about globally in net zero as well. And so I see great opportunities in that. We've also got the factory that's out here, it runs on the highway, and that'll utilise goods that are grown in the Mallee and brought here to the Wimmera to be manufactured. 280 jobs sitting right there that we are going to dump a mine right next to it. Like, it's just crazy. So, Benny, to answer your questions, like, there are so many opportunities that I see that we can actually build on the strengths here, and we just lost our way. And again, poor government policy allows these things to not happen, and we are the worst state for innovation in business. I actually think the number's a lot higher in the businesses that are lost, and we're going to lose a lot more before this government is gone.
We've got to be getting very close to the end. A question over here.
Yeah, Ross, I just wanted to make a note because I've just had someone give me some information today, and it's just in regards to like Julie with the Don Mineral Sands and like there's Donald Mineral Sands, and I'm not sure whether others are aware, but on the 25th of June, ACDC Metals applied for a retention licence and they lodged the application on that day. And this particular mine butts up to the Donald Mineral Sands and goes from the Donald Mineral Road all the way up to Hopeton. And it's got a watching project north and south, plus a Goshen one as well. So just so that's another one for people to look into as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, up the back.
Hi Ross, I'm Kerry Nichols, and I just want to expand on a couple of things Leonie said and you said about how do we change the government, and what you said about farmers knowing their sense of place. About 7 years ago I studied to be a teacher, and up until I did that I didn't really have a deep understanding of our Indigenous people and their sense of place and how that feels to lose your sense of place. At the same time, I'm also married to a farmer. My father's a farmer and my brother is a farmer. So I have certainly a deep understanding of that sense of place. At that same time, 7 years ago, my brother's farm was sold due to personal reasons, and it was heartbreaking for me to see him lose his sense of place. And I suppose what I want to say is, how many of us in this room have relations, brothers, sisters, cousins, friends in the city? How many of us actually have friends in the city? Hands up. I'm a teacher. Come on, hands up. Okay, how many of us have actually voiced to our friends and our family in the city what is going on out here in the country? That is fantastic. We need to keep doing that because we are not going to change our government, our state government in the city without the city people voting for us because as you know, there was more of them in the city than us in the country. We need them on board with us. And the way to do that is for them to understand, as you were talking about, Ross, that when we lose farms and we lose farmers, we lose our sense of place. So I just wanted to say that thank you for bringing those things up, but that brought to me that we have to do this, and also what, the farmer, that was Ben, what you were saying, the city people are our friends. We don't want to put them offside. We want them to come on board with us. We need their help to keep our farms and to fight this, because we can't do it by ourselves, and we want to be united. Victorians, we spent a lot of time being not united, as we all know, through COVID. It was us and them. We don't need to do that again. We need to be united for this to actually to make a difference and to get a different government and make a change and make Victoria better for our children and our grandchildren.
Totally agree. John, would you like to comment about how farmers feel about their land? Yeah. All right, okay. Andrea, would you like to comment about that? Why again?
I just think that they have a history, they have roots. What I've learned from being up here, particularly with Kelvin, the struggles that they had in the early days. Kelvin tells me, I might have this wrong, in the early days, there are 8 in his family in one pair of shoes. So what we're looking at is really a long history of struggle, all types of struggle and survival. The women have had it really tough. The guys have worked really hard. And now that they've actually manicured this beautiful soil and production, and by the way, you could do better, right? But we just can't blow it away or throw it away. And this is why it's so great that you're all here. The information is passed to the city people, it's passed to the local people. But that's the impression I get. Thank you.
Any other comments from any of the panelists? All right, I'm going to just allow this one.
Sorry, I should have mentioned it earlier, sorry about it. So we've actually put together a petition. David Davis is championing it for us in the Legislative Assembly. And we put that together, and that's online and social. And there should be, I think there was going to be some forms to go around. Is that we're still here?
QR code posted out of the LCC group.
Beautiful. So we've got the petition, the QR code on the doors go out. You can just click it and then put it on your phone and then enter it and log it. So it'd be great if everybody in the room, if they consider what we've been talking about tonight, here's our chance to actually stand up in this room tonight. So thank you. And thanks to the Johns family for helping pull all this together. Thank you.
All right, well, I'm sorry, I stand on my record of being on time, but I'm sorry I overran. I'll do a couple more little announcements. The Dunmunkle Land Protection Group has a bit of paper that should be on your seat. If you haven't got one, there's one down the front here. Bill Malcolm has also put a paper out which should be on your seat. Why social benefit cost analysis is necessary for well-informed public policy decisions. That's a really interesting read. And the Wimmera Mallee Environmental and Agricultural Protection Association has got a paper there which is about 1 in 3 have it. There's a few more down the front, I think. No, maybe not. And that's how to relate to corporates, government organisations and government. So I think that's important. It's only in draft form. So Monday night in Warwick-Mobile, 7 o'clock at the community centre. So it's all about poor government process, and we've certainly put poor government process to bed very quickly. The coffin's going out the door as we speak. I'm open for negotiation. I'm more than happy to talk to Tony Albanese or Jacinda Allen. And if she wishes to book an appointment, she should talk to my secretary, Jan Adamsel. I'll bring Andrew Weidemann just for good measure. I think everyone can talk to the politicians. Just talk to them and tell them exactly how you feel. Tell them about your experiences, your lived experiences, the poor process that government's adopted, the trampling of social norms in Australia, which is freedom and free speech. I think this law that's going to be passed, potentially in Victoria, is going to be the most dramatic curtailment of free speech ever in Australian history. And I think we should all stick together. I think it'll be unlikely they'll fine all of us. It'll be very unlikely they'll put us all into jail. Benny Duxon will lead us. And I think if we stick together, country communities are very powerful. So thank you very much to the Dunmunkle Land Protection Group. Now I can pronounce that, so I think we should win in mine. But thank you very much to the ladies who put the catering together. Thank you for what is a fabulous venue. I don't think I've ever been in a better auditorium. It's absolutely great, and we really appreciate the use of it, so thank you very much. And I'd love you all to be upstanding and applaud this group of people who are presenting. Now we're upstanding, follow that coffin, the whole government process out to the coffee table.